Hello everyone, my name is Piotr Kononow and I'm the founder of Dataedo. Welcome to the webinar, which is a demo of our product. Okay, in this presentation I'd like to show you, talk about what Dataedo is. I'd like to talk about the benefits later on. And then I'll jump into presentation. I'll show you the tool, I'll show you its features and how you can get started yourself after the presentation. If you have any questions, please use the questions tab on your right side, and I will have a Q&A session after my presentation. Okay, so let's jump into it. So what is Dataedo? You can classify it as a few different things. So you can think of it as a database or data documentation tool that allows you to document and describe and visualize structures in your databases. You can think of it as a metadata repository, which Dataedo is built on. It holds metadata extracted from multiple sources, from multiple data sources, databases. Currently, these are mostly relational databases. We have also a generic ODBC connector that allows you to connect it to most of other sources. And we want to build native connectors for NoSQL databases and data lakes as well in the near future. You can also think of it as a data catalog. Data catalog is a new term, new class of the tools. Data catalog is a place where data analysts go to find information, to find the data they could be working with and to understand it and to collaboratively discuss about it and gather the knowledge. So data allows doing that as well. We want to focus more on the community part of the functionality early next year. And I'll show you later on what are the plans of development. Okay, so that is Dataedo. So let me tell you about the key features. So everything is based on the metadata repository. So this is a database where all the information that is automatically extracted from your data sources is gathered, and as well as the information put by the data workers who supplement the data model, they describe it, they visualize it, and so on. So this is a repository of your knowledge about the data. Then you have metadata connectors. So we have a number of native connectors that allows you to connect to your database, to your engine, like SQL Server or Oracle, and then extract all the metadata. This information is different from database to database, so those native connectors allow you to get the right information. I also mentioned we have a generic ODBC connector, which allows you to connect to most of the sources. But in this case, metadata is limited to what the driver provides. Then we have an HTML and PDF exports, and this is how you actually publish the documentation, the knowledge, how we share it. So the main one is the HTML. I'll show you that in a second. Then you have comments, aliases, and a number of custom fields of your choice, which you can use to describe every data element. So you can provide comments for columns. You can provide aliases, which give them a meaningful name, and you can describe them with up to 100 custom fields of your choice. This could be like fields like an owner or status or source. Yeah, so you can decide what information you'd like to gather in your data dictionary. Then you have the abilities to supplement the data model of the information of primary unique keys and table relationships. This is very important to know about the data you're working with. So you really need to know if what's the primary key of a table, what are the unique keys. The same for views. If you'd like to use a view, you need to be aware of this particular information. And same goes for relationships. So you really, if you want to write a query, any query, you usually need to join a couple of tables. If you do it right, yeah, you get your data. But if you do it wrong, then you can have all kinds of errors. You can exclude some data because the lookup table doesn't have all the rows. You can have multiplied results. You can have all kinds of problems. So understanding the relationships is crucial. Dataedo extracts the information from foreign keys from the database, but that's not always there. Quite often, this information is generally not defined. This is only in the heads of developers, architects, and so on. There's a number of reasons why databases do not have foreign keys. I've written an entire article about this. Most of the ERP applications do not have it on purpose. So being able to gather this information in the external repository is crucial if you want to work with your data effectively. Then we have ER diagrams. ER diagrams are very useful for visualizing those relationships and key tables for everyone, but especially for people who are not so technical and want to get the top level view of the data model quickly. That's particularly useful. Then we have this thing called modules. So modules is a kind of folder that you can use to group complex database and split it into smaller, more manageable parts. I'll show you how that works. Then we have a data classification feature. It's a sensitive data discovery and classification. So we scan the repository, the data dictionary, and we search for fields that seem to have personal information. We have two functions, built-in functions. One is for GDPR, the other one is generic PII, so personally identifiable information. We look at the fields, we look at the titles, the aliases you provided, and we suggest you the classification level, and we suggest the domain, so the type of information, like is it an email, is it I don't know, a name or address or things like that. And there's also the business glossary. Business glossary is a business metadata. What I talked about till today was a technical metadata. It described the data, the physical data in your organization. And business glossary is the top level vocabulary of your key concepts, key business terms, which allows all people, all departments to be actually speaking the same language. And then you can map those terms to specific data elements in the data dictionary. So what are the benefits? Why you should care and why you should actually document your databases with Dataedo? So the first thing is you have a single source of truth. So you do not have different people understanding things differently, and everyone assuming they're right. You actually can write it down, and everyone can look it up. Everyone can confront their observation with what's actually regarded as truth in your organization in terms of data model and business concepts. The other benefit is that the knowledge stays in your organization. So if key people leave, the knowledge doesn't leave your organization; it stays within. Also, it's much easier to communicate between people in different departments in the same team. Even it's easier to get new people on the team. So let's say you have new developers or new data analysts, and you want them to get to work on day one rather than having long sessions with your key people to explain them what are the key tables or what's this database actually about. You can just hand them the documentation. Everyone can look it up. Everyone can start working and be productive very, very quickly. And the last one, the results are more reliable. I talked about those table relationships. Quite often to mix them up, it's actually quite common. So this reduces the risk of doing incorrect joins, getting the data from the wrong table, or there or column. There are a number of things that can go wrong, and documentation can actually reduce that risk and make your insights more reliable. Okay, let's get to the demo of the product right now. Okay, so this is a Dataedo user interface. This is a desktop application. It's for Windows. We are working on the web version of that. That would be a portal that you implement, you host it in your network or in the cloud. But that would not be a cloud solution hosted on our servers. You'll be in charge of the data, and yeah, you can keep that secure in your location. So what I have over here, it's a browser of the repository. So what you can see here are connections. So these are my specific databases. When I open it, when I drill down, I see the list of tables, views, procedures, and so on. When I go to the specific table, I can see its structure. So the information that was extracted from the source, from my database. So this is a browser of the offline repository. So this is not the live information from the server. This is the repository. So I can see the structure of my tables. See the columns, their data type. I can see the descriptions, which could be imported from the server, and later on they are you can edit them. You can provide also descriptions in the tool itself. I'll show that in a second. You have also the explanation of relationships. So you have a specification of what tables are linked and in what columns. Also, you have a list of primary and unique keys. You also see what columns are unique or what combinations of them. And you can also see the dependencies between the different objects like views, procedures, and so on. Okay, so that's the structure of the database. You can also see two elements over here. These are glossaries, business glossaries. Let me open this one. So glossary is a hierarchy of business terms. You can see those terms defined globally for the repository. When you click on specific glossary, you can see a specific term. You can see the description. You can see some custom fields, some descriptive metadata fields. I'll show you more about this when I get to the business glossary part. Okay, so when you install the Dataedo, these will not be there. You'll get just samples. So first thing you need to do, you need to connect to some of your sources and import the metadata. So to do it, you click Add and choose database connection. And then you can choose the engine. As you can see, we have a number of predefined native connectors for different databases. If your database is not on the list, you can use a generic ODBC connector. You first need to install the ODBC on the machine, then configure it, and then choose it. The details are in the documentation. Let's not get into this right now. So let's say you want to connect to SQL Server. You choose the engine. You provide the connection details. Then when you connect, I'm going to skip that part. You basically see it takes a couple of minutes, then you see the structure gets imported. So all we could find, we just exported that into the repository, imported. So that would be the first step if you'd like to see Dataedo in action. The other one would be to export and share the documentation. So you could get some value in just a couple of minutes if you have descriptions in your database. If the relationships are defined as foreign key constraints in the database, you can basically choose the export function and choose one of the formats. The HTML is the default one. If you want to include the business glossary, you need to choose this one. So when you export, you get something like this. So this is a document you can share through shared folder. You can put it on any web server. It's a lightweight, separate entity that you can even send it over email to someone. So we have a repository viewer browser over here. The same information that you've seen in the desktop. You can search. So let's say you're looking for a customer table, right? So you can see the business term called customer. I don't know why it's called customer too. That doesn't matter. You can see some relationships. I'll talk about that later. And you can see the instances of this term in different databases. So you can browse the data dictionary as well. Let's scroll over here. So let's see a customers table. You can see where it is. You can see the modules it's attached to. You can see the structure, the descriptions, and you can also see those ear diagrams I told you about. Okay, so let me show you how you actually document the database. So once you have imported all this, you need to. Your job is right now to provide the knowledge, the information about the data structure, so that everyone knows where to find the data they're looking for and how to use it. If they have a table or columns, they need to understand what they are for, what to expect from the content of this table or column, how they are joined. Yes, so I'll show you a couple of techniques you can use right now to actually add this knowledge, this metadata layer to what we exported from the database. So how we can actually gather knowledge from your team members. So the first thing, well, maybe not the first thing, but one of the things that you could do is to provide the descriptions. We have a feature called progress tracking, show progress, and let's see. It shows you where you have the descriptions in your database and where they are missing. So as you can see, this database is quite well documented. So 78% of fields is complete. So 100% of tables and only 27% of views. Let's ignore them for a minute. The Dataedo repository is also 100%, but our CRM database is completely empty. So what we need to do right now, we need to go to the table. You can see which fields are empty. You can, right, this is maybe the hard part. You provide the descriptions for every field that actually, if it makes sense. You do not need to make it 100%. Yeah, although it would be good, it would look good on the report. You can see some of the fields have a triangle. This means that we have found some other descriptions. You can see some other descriptions from other tables from the column called name. So you can reuse them, add the description quickly, like this, without having to type in the same information over and over again. This doesn't fit here, but the created by or creation date are the good examples, right? You do not want to provide the same text for all the fields, so for all the columns. So you basically do something like this, or even you go to the find. Yes, I want. You go to find column feature, and it shows you all the occurrences of this column in all the in the entire repository. So you can see we have it in the CRM database and Dataedo repository. So if you want to basically get the job done, you do something like this, right? Even more, and it's done, right? So we have done a lot of work quickly. So these are the descriptions. The same thing goes for the so-called custom fields. So these are the, well, these are the custom fields. So those are all the descriptive fields you'd like to have in your data dictionary that will help your people to manage the database, to use it. You can use it for fields like status if it's still if the field is still active or if it's deprecated. You can use it for owner. You can use it on the table level or the column level as well. If it's the data warehouse, you can use it for source to describe the source table or column. You can define a steward and so on. We have here also classifications. So indicating the sensitivity of the data, which I'll show you in our data discovery and classification module. Also, we have a field called title. This title is used when the column names are confusing. So let's assume. I don't know, this is not a fax number. I don't know if this is some old school CRM and nobody uses this for a fax anymore, right? Nobody has fax. You use it for a Skype. Let's say people are using Skype, right? So this would be confusing for everyone who goes into database and assumes, okay, where do you have any information about the person Skype? There's only fax, right? They wouldn't guess to look into this column. So you provide an alias, right? And every time in the documentation, you will see this title next to the name. That this is particularly useful for legacy databases or packaged applications like CRM, ERP, and so on. These databases have generic language used. They have fields like attribute 1 to 10, and the language doesn't fit into your organization most of the time. So it's particularly useful to provide this alias to actually, indicate what's the actual purpose, right? You provide more details in the description field, but this is very easy to see right next to the name to see the actual use of it. Okay, so let's say you have described all the fields. And you want to describe the table. The next thing you can do is to document the uniqueness. So this is particularly useful if you want to do joins, or if you're doing a report, you're grouping some information, and you really need to know what data are reliable as a unique, which do not occur more than once, particular value in the data set. So let's say that name is unique. I need it for a report, right? But I do not know that. The database doesn't have a constraint on this field, but I know, I designed the application or I spent a lot of time working with it, and I know that information. So I wanted to, share this information with everyone else, right? So I can register a unique key with the name field, and that would mean that this information, this column, if I go and back, that this column is unique, but this information is not defined in the database. It's only in the repository, so it's for information purposes only. And the same thing goes for the relationships, right? So you can see those imported from the from the database, but as I told you, many databases. It's I did the research, and it's up to 75% of databases do not have foreign keys, and even if they do, they often have relationships that are not defined. So let's say city. If there's a lookup of the city field, there's a lookup for this particular field, and I'd like to get, I don't know, the population of the city, right? If I want to run a report, create a report, yeah, that would take a lot of many hours to to find a table with a list of cities. I would be worried: do they have all the fields? Do they have the same naming? Do they have are they unique, and so on? So if I wanted to add the population, that would take a lot of time for an analyst to do it. But let's say somebody has created a lookup for this table, right? And if they want to help anyone else who would later on like to do the same thing, right? To have a lookup for this, to use this lookup for the field, you create a foreign key. So you say that you can join this with another data set, and this data set does not need to be in the same database. One thing I need to mention is that you can also define those sources manually. So like a design function, we can design table, you can enter this information manually. So let's say you have this in a CSV file, so you could create a source called I don't know, CSV files or something like that, and then create table for a file representing this file, and then you can simply link it. Like let's say I have this over here, right? Okay, I have cities, right? So I have this test table. I want to say that city can be linked to a city column. Yeah, this table has just one column, but let's assume the results are population. When I save it, and again, let me get back, you can see over here that this table is linked, is referenced, references table from the test database called cities, DBO cities, right? And on the relationships, you have this information over here. This is very useful. That gives a lot of power to the analyst, all those people who are working with data, who want to do reporting, and that's very useful. Okay, so now that I have created those relationships, I could visualize them, right? So I need to create module. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a second. So so that would be my diagram, right? So I can get this companies, right? I have it over here, and I can search for entities, right? And right now, I can see my city. Oh, sorry. By default, it's enabled only for the entities from this database. But right now, if I enable all the entities, it suggests me to add the cities, which is joined to the companies table I just showed you. So I created this link, and you can see that this new link is created. It's visualized. So let's say this module is about companies. I can gather some information about the information about the companies, and I can show here all the tables on the entities. Also, it could be like flat files or any entities, data sets that are loosely related to this to the information about companies. I can choose which fields I want to show. The same here. I can so this is quite useful information, useful feature of disabling some, hiding some information. The columns, the diagrams. The idea of diagram is to give you a top-level view of the key entities and their relationships and their key attributes. It's not its purpose is not to specify the data source. So for that, you have a data dictionary. So this is just to give you a top-level view. But if you'd like to know what are all the attributes of this sales territory table, you go over there, and this is the data dictionary. This is where you get all the details. Sorry, that's not the one. But yeah, the diagram is just for showing you the relationships and key entities and their key attributes. So another benefit of Dataedo, of our approach, is that you can have multiple, for each database you can create many more, you can group them into a separate manual, we call the manual documentation, manual database. So like over here, you can group your modules and diagrams separately. So you can build a list of, we call them modules. These are those folders, or we will later rename it to subject areas. So this is a specific topic, specific idea, module in the application or report or something like that, where you can visualize it with some couple of entities from your entire data dictionary, and you can provide a descriptions using you can paste images, tables, and so on. So it's like a topic. So you can a person can actually gather here all they know about, I don't know, certain analytic or certain report or something like that. So you get the visualization of the model, descriptions, and you can also, which you can see over here, you can group tables and views and procedures and all the other elements. So you can see it over here as well. If I click to the people module, which explains the models of the entities of people in my organization and the attributes that describe them, I can also see the key tables that I should care if I would like to do some reporting about it. Okay, so these are the modules. Let's now jump to the data classification. When I was showing the data dictionary, there is a field called, there were two fields called GDPR classification and GDPR data domain. So these are two fields we are trying to find and guess the purpose of the columns of the data within the columns in terms of sensitivity information. In this case, regarding GDPR regulation. So we tag or classify the columns as sensitive, and we have a couple of sensitivity levels. So we can say this is personal data, and this is special category personal data, because this is how the GDPR defines the classification levels. You can also say it's not personal data. So we do it automatically, semi-automatically. Then you can curate it manually going through the data dictionary. And the domain is a type of the data. So you would like to see all the emails, for instance, right? So you'd like to ask a question: where do we get the email of our clients? Where do we have it in our data ecosystem? So if you'd like to populate these fields, which could be a lot of work, we have built in two classifications. You can provide your own. You can modify it. That takes a little work in the database. It's not particularly difficult, but you need to go to the repository. Okay, so let's say we want to provide another classification for PII. I click it. It takes a while, and it shows me all the fields it has found that we believe hold the sensitive information, right? Select none. So let me review this list. It's quite long. I don't have to do it in one go, right? And I want to look at it by the column name. So let's say we have a credit card ID. Okay, that's most likely sensitive, right? So we just hit we just approve these. We can also change the sensitivity level. And when I'm done with the package, I can save it. When I save it, I should see 2 more fields. And I can also see a summary report. Right, so I go and I choose. Right, so these are the fields I have found. So I can see all the, assuming this is all the credit card information from entire data dictionary, data catalog. For the GDPR, you can see there's a lot more if I sort it or filter it, or I can export it to Excel or something. So I can see, yeah, as I told you about the email. Let's see all the emails. You can see there's a lot of that, quite a lot of that. I have just 2 or 3 sample databases, and you can see there's a lot of information as simple as email, but there's a lot of more. Okay, and let's now. So we have covered the data dictionary, how to describe it, how to import it in the first place, how to describe it, how to visualize it, and how to tag sensitive information. Let me jump to the business glossary. This is a different kind of metadata. So what I discussed right now, till now, is a technical metadata. Technical means it's about the physical data. Well, data is not physical, but it's actually defined in the systems. It exists somewhere. While business glossary is a business metadata, it's just a representation of business language, of business concepts. They have no representation elsewhere, maybe in documents or, yeah, most likely documents or emails, right? But this is the idea of business glossary is to capture the key concepts and how your organization understands it. It might seem doing just for the sake of doing, but it's really every organization. If we think even about the most simple concept like employee, customer, or a product in your organization, you can find easily 2 different people who understand it completely differently. Let me give an example of the customer. So who is the customer? Is your customer somebody who bought a $5 product 5 years ago? Some people will say it's not a customer. People in accounting could say a customer is not a customer until we have issued an invoice for them, right? So sales would have a very different understanding of the customer. And let's imagine somebody was asked to do a list or I don't know, some statistics, some information about the number of customers, new customers last quarter. It depends who is the person they talk to. They will have the different results, and that is very something undesirable. You really need to. And let's say they did this report, and different people are talking. They are talking about different things, and they are the assumption is that they're talking about the same thing. So this is quite counterproductive if and that exists in all organizations, even the smallest ones. So establishing a common language is a crucial part. I think in all the data initiatives, all the analytics, all the if you want to analyze something, you need to know what actually that is, right? So Business Glory helps you to capture this language. This is a repository of business terms. You can also define the business policies and rules regarding data. Let's focus on the terms. So we define the definition. Okay, so this is very simplified as just an example, but this should be more detailed, like the one I said. How long should a customer? What's the last they should be purchasing to call them still a customer, or how big the account should be, and so on. And once you define this definition, you can build a relationships. Let me find some relationships. There are none. Between so we have a product, and you can explain the relationships between those terms. So you can have like different types of relationships. So show related to synonyms, show that something is calculated from something, or it replaces, or is a synonym, or is a type of something. So we can explain the relationships, so how they, one is related to the other, what's the structure of it. Another thing is you can group them in the hierarchy, which also helps you to organize them in some structure and make it easier to navigate them. So this is how you define the language, and then you can map this language to the data sets, to the data elements. So let's say product. I can find product in the production product table, and that is in the AdventureWorks database. I can link it to another fields, all the other fields and tables. So I don't know, do I have some product? Okay, yeah, I have a data warehouse, right? Dim product, right? I can link it to the product product dimension table. Right. So when I export that, people can, that gives you two benefits, at least. So let's find product. So one thing is, when I look up, when I want to find products in our organization, I can go to the product term, and then I can find its instances in the databases, right? And the other thing, another benefit, is that when I look at the data set and I see the column, say product number, I can see only, without the business glossary, I can see the description provided by some technical person who thought what that is, but I do not get the entire context of that. So business glossary gives me another layer of the information, of the business information about the data. So I can look up what's that actually, what is, how our organization sees the, in this case, product number, right? What it is. This should have more information, right? This is just a sample. Okay, I covered a lot of topics. So I showed you how you can build your technical metadata repository and then supplement it with a business glossary. And how to you can share this information with your team. So that would be that would conclude my presentation of the product. Let me take just 2 more minutes to tell you about our plans for the development. So the most important feature we're working on right now is the web portal. That would be so that would join the benefits of this export with the desktop application. So you'll be able to search information and edit it and write in your browser. We'll also build a community feature which will allow you to actually have a conversation, have topics, threads about specific elements, data elements. Like you can talk about tables or columns, and you can ask questions. So that will give you, on top of the description, right? You'll see what other questions, questions other people who try to work with this data set had, and what were the answers provided by the community. So that is, you do not have to go and ask or try to find information in your inbox, right, in your email. We'd like to add also the repository of the reports. We'd like to scan some popular BI tools. We'll start with Microsoft SSRS reporting services, and we'll provide you with the list of the reports, which you can describe its purpose, who is using it, and so on. And then we'll add a lineage, data lineage, where you can explain what data assets are used by specific reports. So that could work both ways. You can see where does the data come from, or where is the specific table used. So yeah, so these are the things we are focusing on right now at the moment. Okay, let me get back to my presentation. Right, so I did a demo. Right, we are at the Q&A session. So feel free to use the questions tab to ask questions if you have. I have some questions already. Okay, I have 2 questions. So Mulukan asks, are the change we make in the data repository saved in the extended properties of the objects in the server? Yeah, you ask for for how to show it. So the answer is it could be in the extended properties. So extended properties are those fields, description fields, which are similar to our custom fields in SQL Server or Azure database. So by default, they are not. They are so all the changes. So no change done in the tool are reflected in the database, except you can intentionally choose to export those fields to the server. That works for SQL Server and maybe Oracle and a couple of data engines. Not for all of them, but in SQL Server, yes. So you just you have this database. You provided those descriptions and custom fields, and you connect. I will not do that right now, but this information will be pushed to the server. Okay. Zarvara asks, is it possible to edit nullable field in the columns? It is not possible to edit this particular field, right? So this nullable field. This is the data type and the nullable information, and also I think the default computed are imported. They reflect what's in the database, but you could override it with a custom field, right? So you could create a nullable manual field, right? And right, you can just have it for the columns. And I think there's a binary checkbox, right? So you could create something like that, and here you go. You can do it manually, right? Yeah. So the nullable always reflects the actual physical constraints, limitations on the data. Okay, so those were the questions. Let me know if you have anything more for me. Okay, while I'm waiting for the questions you might have, I'd like to invite you to get a trial. So all that I've just shown you, you can do it yourselves after the webinar. You can go to our website, right? You get a trial, assuming you don't have one. You fill out the form. You can then download the tool. You just install it. It's a very simple Windows application. Right. Then, okay, I'll show one more thing. When you want to start with the tool, I have already connected to the repository, but if you will not, okay, it's here, you will see something like this. You create the repository. If you do not have the SQL Server database anywhere, you can talk to your admin. If you do not, it's recommended for the teamwork, if you'd like to work with many people. You can always create the new repository. You click that twice, provide a name. It's not that important, right? Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have a... Yeah, you'll enter your key you have received, and you're good to go. You can do all those. Oh, sorry. You can do all those things I just shown you. So you can connect to your data source and export the HTML, show it to your colleagues, and that's I believe that would be the first major step to getting more value out of your data. So you can actually be more reliable. Your reporting, your analytics could be more reliable. Okay, I do not see any questions, so that would be all. thank you for being here, and I hope to see you in another webinar we are organizing in New Year. There we have no specific dates. If you have any questions regarding this or anything, don't hesitate to write us. You can write me directly to my email. You can go to our website and use chat or use contact tab to talk to me or one of my colleagues. So you're welcome to talk to us. Hope to see you. Thank you very much, and bye.